Jahdae Barron, on the other hand, makes less sense. And again, I talked to Texas sources yesterday, leading all the way up through last night. And Anwar, the sense that I got was that they were hopeful. I think they feel like if you were handicapping this, that Barron ends up at Texas. But he has put in a request to be into the portal. Texas kind of had 48 hours to try to talk him out of it. It remains to be seen if he is going to be talked out of it. We'll see.
But can you set it up for people who who don't understand the 48-hour thing? Can you kind of set that up for them so they, Yeah,
and I think the Jordan Addison situation at Pittsburgh is probably the perfect one because everybody has been hearing that there's this discussion that the nation's Biletnikoff winner from a year ago could go to USC with a big NIL deal, but it hasn't happened yet. And the deadline to get your name submitted for for the portal purposes to be able to play this season was on Sunday, May 1st. So it looks like when you put your name into the portal, your school that you are enrolled at has basically 48 hours to submit your request to the portal, whatever, right? Like whatever the actual portal is in a computer somewhere. They have up to 48 hours to put that request into the system. During that time, they can try to talk dudes out of going into the portal. And it actually happens more than people would think. I mean, I heard of a situation of last week of a guy that wanted to put his name into the portal, did put his name into the portal, and they were able to walk him off the ledge. Now the issue is, will that happen with Barron? I think this is an NIL question. I think Jahdae Barron wants to know potentially what his value is on the open market. From what I know of the conversations, I think Texas feels like, and they've relayed this to him, that there's probably not a better place for him right now in terms of NIL money. But look, if O'Shawn Mathis just got a big payment, and if there's a desperate school out there that says the thing we're missing is a guy that could come in and be all conference level cornerback when it's all said and done, or nickel, like that's what we need. Maybe there's a market out there that Barron has no idea about. I think this is really a situation that the entire team is watching because every player in college football is watching the portal evolve in real time, and they're watching the Addison situation at Pittsburgh, and they'll go, oh, wait a minute. He can put his name in the portal and always pull it back out. If he wants to shop himself for a couple of weeks, Pitt will take him in the middle of May back. But this was the last day that you could put your name in to be eligible this season. And I just think a lot of guys across the country are watching this situation. And I think Jahdae Barron is potentially a little bit of a guinea pig because there's one of about three situations that can happen here. One, he pulls his name out of the portal, and had this not already been reported, we would have never really talked about it, right? I mean, like I said, there's a guy last week that put his name into the portal. It's probably been 10 over the course of the last year to put their name in. And then once coaches or people realize, oh my gosh, really? They're able to talk those guys out of it. He either pulls his name out of the portal and doesn't go in. He either puts his toes into the portal and finds that there's somebody out there that values him at a level that Texas hasn't proven to value him at, or he puts himself into the portal and doesn't find a marketplace at all and kind of comes back to Texas a little bit. I don't know if tail between his legs is a fair thing, right? It's a sheepish, I was just kidding, I really want to stay here kind of announcement anytime a guy goes into the portal and comes back. But those are basically the three options. And I think that every guy in the Texas locker room, Anwar, is watching this to say, is Jahdae really going to do that? If he is he going to get paid big by somebody else? And if he's not, it's a little bit like the guy who transfers and then it doesn't pan out and he's a little bit of a cautionary tale. I think that this would potentially be a cautionary tale for other players on the Texas roster who think the grass could be greener on the other side and maybe find themselves realizing that there's no spot for them and it ended up being a mistake. So I think everybody's watching.
All right, yeah. So let me jump in. So it's not, but the thing is, the underlying theme of it's kind of what you alluded to, but the bigger thing is it's not guys going to the transfer portal because they're looking for playing time somewhere else. Jahdae Barron's got playing time here. It's going to be a starter here. That's not the issue. What's happening is guys are going into the transfer portal with the hope of securing NIL deals. And so what's going on is the belief in the whispers that they're hearing from their people who work with them, who are saying, man, we're hearing that such and such school might pay you X amount of dollars. So if you go to the transfer portal, there could be an NIL deal waiting for you here on the other side. And so now what's happening is, it's a negotiation for like, this is a business. This is a marketplace. Now it's okay, hey, I got 48 hours. So essentially it's kind of like when you announce to your employer, like, hey, if I say, hey, Ketch, I've got an offer from 24/7.
And I got to give them a decision by Friday.
I got to give them a decision, and so it's up to you to decide, do you want to match it? Or are you going to say, I got to let them walk, and go from there. And so that's what we're seeing now is the negotiation portion of it, of guys saying, okay, there's some money out here. And there becomes this, the clutching of the pearls of the sanctity of the sport. And, oh my God, these guys are getting paid and so on and so forth. But this is really what this is about. It's not necessarily, Jordan Addison doesn't need to transfer to be a first round pick. Jordan Addison will be a first round pick if he stayed at Pitt.
Yeah.
But Jordan Addison may not have the potential to make $2 million or $3 million at Pitt this year, but he sure might be able to make that somewhere else. That's what these guys are looking at.
Well, and the reason why everybody's watching Addison, Anwar, is because it sounds like Pitt. So this kid has a big NIL offer presentation in front of him. And maybe that means he transfers to USC. And look, let's be honest. Maybe playing at USC is just sexier than playing at Pitt when your coach left, your quarterback left. It's not the same team from a year ago. You look over at USC and they got Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams, and it looks very promising. The weather's better. You've got this NIL deal, but what happens is now, what has Pitt done? Pitt's like, oh, well, we now give us 48 hours, right? You've got this window of time. We'll match it. Somehow you go from whatever he was making previously in NIL dollars. Now that they realize there's a marketplace for him to get substantially more, they got to figure out if they can match it. And maybe they have, which then puts the kid in a place where he either pulls his name out and he got the bag, or maybe it really wasn't about money anyway. It's always about money a little bit, but if the dollars end up matching and he leaves to go someplace else anywhere, then really it was more about not wanting to be at Pitt while also making more money and having a chance to maybe play to be a playoff level team as opposed to whatever Pitt's going to be this year. You look at Barron, it's just a little bit of a unique situation for him. And I get it from his perspective. I don't think any of us know what he's worth. That if he was in an open market, he knows what O'Shawn Mathis makes or is going to make at Nebraska. And he might be thinking to himself, I'm as good at my position as Mathis is at his. Does that mean I'm worth that much money if Nebraska needs a nickelback or if Indiana I don't know. Like we're hypothesizing here, but I think Texas is letting him know nobody right now is doing more on the NIL front than Texas. I think they really believe that. Now, there's a lot that they haven't done, but there's no question that NIL deals have helped them keep Quinn Ewers through the portal, Isaiah Nayor through the portal, Jaleel Billingsley through the portal, Ajay Hall through the portal. All those dudes got enhanced NIL deals. They're getting more from NIL at Texas than they were getting at Alabama, and it's not even close. Bijan Robinson is still at Texas. I mean, Bijan could do exactly what Jordan Addison is doing if he wanted to. And what's an All-America running back for a season worth in college football? I don't think we know. If Xavier Worthy wanted to test the waters, I'm guessing he could do borderline what Jordan Addison is able to do. I think it's interesting that somebody has to be the person to test the waters a little bit from the Texas Longhorn side of things. And it might be Jahdae Barron. It might not be. Like I said, it's possible that by the time you watch this video, maybe on Wednesday, that Tuesday has gone by and Barron's name is not in the portal. Then you'll know it's all good. He's not leaving. He can't play anywhere else this season. But it's possible by the time you watch this video, he is in the portal. And this is the backdrop behind it all. I get the sense that Texas doesn't feel like someone's going to swoop in and steal him. But he may want to find out for himself, to be sure. And I think it's a really fascinating deal because it really is the evolution of the portal and how it will be used. And this is going to be a little bit more normalized in 2023 than it is in 2022. And as we were talking about yesterday on the Monday Overreaction show, college football fans as a whole will have to recalibrate their brains a little bit in terms of how talent acquisition, roster management, and things like that kind of go down moving forward. It's a brave new world, brave new complicated world.
Yeah, I mean it's a new world. Like I said, it's just a world that college football fans will have to get used to and adjust and understand that we're in a world where athletes, because of name, image, and likeness, can get paid, and however you want to view it, out of whatever prism, and if people don't like it or don't like it, doesn't matter. It's here, and it's this is just what the I don't begrudge any young person that's able to, make money, at 18, 19 years old, 20 years old, become, make six figures, $1 million, whatever the case may be. We wouldn't begrudge them in any other capacity catch of life. If they were 19 years old and started their own business and their own company catch, and they made $1 million in a year, we'd be thinking like, oh my God, like WizKid, right? We praise them, for what they were able to do. We don't begrudge it in any other sport that it occurs. So everyone's just got to get used to the football thing. This is where it's going to be. There are no minor leagues for college football players to be in. They have to go to college. Not everybody wants to go. And so some people want to go and be in the NFL, and that's kind of their goal. But now they have a way to monetize it, and they're going to make some money in the process. And, you're going to have to get used to bidding wars. This is free agency. It just is what it is. You have to get used to bidding wars. You're going to have to get used to, knowing that there may be guys who go into the portal and test their waters damn near every season. I mean, you only get a chance from once, but again, if I told you, Ketch, there's going to be a guy who's going to come across, who's going to be in a school, is going to be an elite talent, just elite talent when it's undeniable, right? It just, from the time he steps on campus, that guy's a stud. And that person is going to say every single year, it's going to be like a renewable contract. All right, are you going to have me this year or not?
Show me the money.
Show me the money. The price has gone up. I'm an all-conference guy this year. I was a first team, all AP. I'm on, ESPN watch list, this and that. Yeah, man, I know what you paid me last year, but this is a new year. You're going to pay me? All right, because I'm going to go somewhere else and I'm going to get that paycheck. So it's just going to be a new thing that we're going to have to get used to. And everyone's going to have to, get used to. Again, it doesn't bother you and I, but for those that it does bother, it's going to just, like you said, recalibrating on how you look at sports going forward.
I'm reminded of the game Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And I would watch that show back in the day. You start answering questions and you're phoning your friend and you're polling the audience, and you get up to like 64, like $120-something thousand. And you got to make that decision, right? Am I going to take home what I'm making, or do I want to go for it? And what I understand about the finances of all of this is I get this sense that most football players at Texas, I don't know how it's going to work for all the other sports, But I think what we're going to probably see is that the average Texas football player, not the stars, the other guys, that they're making like between 1 and 150 a year, 150 grand a year ish. I think if you're a good player, right, you're a starter, not all conference, all American, but I don't know, if you're Jahdae Barron potentially, and you're a really good player, that number might go up to like 250. The question is, and this is why the who wants to be a millionaire thing pops into my head, is I think that Barron probably looks at a guy like O'Shawn Mathis and thinks to himself, I'm at this level, but what if I can get to that level? And I think there is some risk. Look, this will sound like blasphemy, and this will be like sounding like cutting your nose off to spite your face. But there's an alternate universe out there where that kid enters the portal, doesn't find any deals that are remotely on the level of what he could probably make, or if he just stays put. And then if he wants to come back to Texas, there's a world out there where Texas goes, no. The entire locker room just watch this. And if we bring you back, then what's to stop the entire roster from doing the exact same thing by the dozens at this exact same time next year? Because the worst thing that can happen is you come crawling back and we take you. Now, I think Sarkisian wants to win so badly this year, coming off of 5-7. You know, what's the expression? You can't look a gift horse in the mouth. Like, I don't even know what that means, but he can't do that. He needs his starting cornerback, his starting nickel to be on this team. And ideally, they want him. But it wouldn't surprise. I don't know. I wonder if it's been conveyed to him, if you do enter the portal, we can't take you back. For the reasons that I've outlined, which is he's got an entire locker room watching how this unfolds. And if you're Sarkisian on some level, you do want to set a precedent that there's risk here. You know what? You can go find more money than you go find more money, but you can't take what we're offering you for granted. Maybe that doesn't happen here in this exact moment. But what I would offer is it'll happen at some point. They're at some point going to draw a line in the sand and say, there's more harm being done than good by putting ourselves into a position where we're exposed. It's an 85-man locker room, Anwar. Yeah. Everybody wants to get paid. If one of these guys stunts on the program, shops themselves, and then comes back and everything's okay, every dude watching this is going to be like, well, what's the harm? What's the harm? Put my name in the portal, find out if there's a big-ass check out there, and if not, I'll come back to Texas and make my 100, my 150. And that's the damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you're Texas, you're building this thing up. We think about the pancake thing, right? Where all the offensive linemen come in, all of them come in 50 grand in their pocket. They're building off of 50. Every offensive lineman in the program, depending on, the aspirations of some of those guys, what happens in a situation like this will impact it significantly. It's one of the reasons why I'm glued to this. It may very well be that he just pulls his name out of the portal and you and I have had this big conversation about him for nothing. However, this conversation as a whole exists. This is a new frontier. And whether or not, my final comment on this would be, whether or not it's Jahdae Barron or somebody else, this situation is coming. And it will be interesting to see not just how Steve Sarkisian, but how coaches across the country react to this. Do I bring in the talent and keep the talent and potentially put myself in the entire program in a real sketchy position? Or do I put my foot down and make sure guys know that, okay, you can go try to get your money, but there are no guarantees in this world. And you may just be doing that thing like on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, when you're like, oh, I still got my phone a friend and I can still pull the audience. Let's do it. Let's go for $250,000. And I watched that show a lot when it first came out. And that Usually the guy or the woman who goes for it loses it. Probably isn't exactly the same in this situation, but I think it's a situation where it's going to happen at some point. And I am fascinated by how this thing finishes.
The only thing I'll say to add on, and this will be kind of my closing thing, as you talked about the fascination, there's only one part of NIL that I don't like, and it's actually as relates to the coaches. I don't like that the coaches essentially will now have to answer to money people as far as how to fill out their roster. And what, right, wrong, or indifferent, coaches will have to have connections with NIL folks within their city, state, whatever the case may be, in order to get deals for guys that they want to come on campus, stay on campus, whatever. Like there will be the campus tour, right, Catch? There will be the dinners that you have. They will take the kids out and let them go and party and enjoy themselves and all that other type of stuff. And it'll be great. You bring out the professors, all those kind of things. There's going to be another added thing that comes in there, which is going to be the show me the money portion of it.
This really is like the T. Boone Pickens potentially runs the Oklahoma State program.
Yeah.
Because the coaches are helpless to a certain degree on this. I mean,
yeah.
They've got to go to their NIL people and say, can this happen?
You got to ask for it. You got
those conversations don't. And then so Jahdae Barron's not talking to the coaches. That's not how this works.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're one of the secondary coaches, if you're Pete Kwiatkowski, it's not like he goes and sits in a room with Jahdae Barron and says, all right, tell me what you want, and I'll see if I can make it. That's not how it works. What they do instead is they have to, like us, they have to sit and wait and find out, is he going to be in the portal or not? And it is an extra layer of complexity to how a program is operating that's entirely, and every school is going to be a little bit different, right? Maybe at one school, there's one main guy. You just go to the same guy over and over and over again. Or maybe there's 5 guys in place. This is all still so new that most schools are still setting up their operations. But you have situations like this that are popping up for most of these schools have completely set themselves up the way they want. I was talking with some people about NIL yesterday, and they seem to feel like by the end of 2022, that most schools across the country will at least be organized. But at this point, in May of 2022, it's probably 50-50, if that at best. I mean, Texas A&M, for example, they are not fully flying on the NIL. They're not doing terrible, but there's a sense that, they haven't raided the portal market. You haven't seen them have the success with transfers that Texas has, and a big part of that is NIL. I mean, you can get mad at NIL all you want to, but when you watch the Texas offense in the fall, realize that was aided significantly by the organization on this front from Texas. There might be 10 schools in the country that are super organized, but there might be 100 that are still figuring out what the hell to do. And I think if you're Texas, you feel good that you've got your NIL situation pretty under control right now. I mean, you're operational and functional. There will be other schools. Maybe Pittsburgh's a perfect example. How organized do we really think they were on the NIL front before this Addison situation came to the forefront? The answer to that is, well, he's in the portal, isn't he? So if it took him potentially going into the portal for Pittsburgh to step up their offer, then they probably weren't doing enough as it was already. And, there's nothing else really to be said other than it's complicated, it's new, and there'll be different answers every day. And look, when we do the Orange Bloods video on Wednesday, maybe we've got the reaction video to what happens with Jahdae Barron. This one, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't have a gut feeling. If you made me Anwar place a bet, I think he pulls his name out. Maybe he doesn't want to be the first. Takes a lot of balls to jump without a net. And I can't say whether or not he's willing to be the guy who tries to jump without a net. If I had to bet on something, I would say he pulls his name out. But I wouldn't bet anything on. I wouldn't feel comfortable betting on anything right now. And that's where we leave things as we wrap up. You got anything else?
Yeah, I never got the chance to finish my thought.
I'm sorry.
So what I was saying was, when I feel bad for the coaches in the situation that they're in at this moment, because they do have to answer to other people. I was saying the one thing I don't really enjoy about NIL is this factor of it. And, whether you have one person that you have to answer to, or 3 or 4 different entities, at some point when these people are cutting checks for players that you feel are important key parts of, winning and success, those people are going to want results. Like they're going to look and say, I spent 6 figures, 50,000, 100,000, 300,000, 500,000, $1 million. And they're going to, those guys are going to have to therefore produce. And if they don't produce, with the fear that I have for these coaches, like it always used to be sometimes like, all right, coach, to tell the AD, listen, if this program doesn't get better, maybe I'll pull some of my donations to your program. And then AD be like, oh my gosh, like this, I'm freaking out. Well, now it's going to be, listen, not only that, if I paid $200,000 for a guy and he ain't special, then am I going to give you $200,000 next year, Catch? Am I going to give you $300,000 next year? I'm going to give you $400,000. Am I going to put together a group to pay? Like, so now all of a sudden, the person that you say is worth it, they damn near better be worth it. And because if not, I think this adds in an extra layer of pressure for coaches that they're going to have to deal with. So the only thing I don't, enjoy about it is that portion of it, knowing that these guys are facing more people, more chefs that are going to be in the kitchen than normal, more entities that they definitely won't be able to control. But knowing that if that guy cuts a check, that person that you co-signed for, they damn near better produce. Because if not, I ain't cutting you another check. That was all.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be a world where money just doesn't matter. And, who really lives in that world where it's like, hey, I invested $250,000 in something and it just didn't produce at all. What happens when a guy gets injured? Because none of this is play for pay. Does that mean that a guy coming off of an ACL tear, you're like, actually, your market value is down and we're going to cut your intake in half. And if you want to try to make more, by all means, put yourself into the portal coming off of an ACL injury when you're working out with our rehab people. Like, tricky little universe that we potentially will be finding ourselves in moving forward. Look, there will be conversations about NIL moving forward into the foreseeable future indefinitely. We'll end it there. For myself and Anwar Richardson and Underdog Fantasy, again, put 100% deposit matched on the first deposit up to $100. Just use the Orange Bloods password. Go to Underdog Fantasy. Let them be your home for fantasy. Until our next video, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon. Later.